The Import tab on the main tab bar allows us to import elements into Vizrt Artist. When we click on the Import tab, in the left-hand column, it gives us a folder navigation tree where we can go and search for different elements to import. So I have a couple of elements within my Elements folder, and I double-click on this, and it lists other subfolders if they're listed in there. So first, let's import some images. So I'm going to come over here into my database. I'm going to select my Image tab, and I'm also going to come down here into my folders and select which folder I want my images to go into. Now I can navigate into different folders within the navigation column here. So if I click on other folders, I also can access subfolders if I want. So I can come back and navigate to any folder that I want, and whenever I see the image that I want to import, I can just simply drag it one by one over into this window. And when I do that, it imports that image. If I want to do multiple images, so I could come in here and let's say I want to do several images just like this, I can select one and hold down Shift and select the other one, and I can also hold down the Control button and select another one, and then we can just drag these left and it imports these images. If we want to import a font, we can come right over here to the F tab, and I have a folder set up here for fonts. Now I can come over here and use this drop down and select fonts. I don't have any fonts in this particular navigation tree, so I'm going to come into my Windows settings here. So I'll go into Windows and navigate to the Fonts folder, and once I do that, it's going to populate on the right hand side a number of fonts. So again, I can just choose whichever font I want, and I'm just going to drag this left into this window here. Now as it's doing that, in my configuration panel, I have it set up to import multiple versions of this font. It's going to give us 4 blurred fonts and 3 outlined fonts. To change that, you can go into the config panel and change the setting for that. So next, we can import an object. So I'm going to select my O tab here, and I have an objects folder on the left, and I have a couple of objects in here. So I'm going to navigate down to where I have some objects stored, and I'm going to click on my objects folder, and again, I need to change this drop down to objects. So here you see I have an object. It's a .3ds file, and I can just take this and drag this over. Now I already have it in there, so I'm just going to replace it. And I have other objects here that I can import. So I'm going to go to 3D, and I have a .3ds folder. And here we'll try a baseball. So I'll drag that one in. And we also have an OBJ folder. So I'm just going to drag a football helmet in. And I already have that football helmet, so I'll just replace it. If something is already in the system, it will ask you to replace it if it has the same name. Now, next thing that we can import is an audio file. So I'm going to come over here and select my A tab, and I'm just going to import it into my main folder here. So I select main folder, and then I'm going to come over into the drop down and select audio. So I'm going to come into my elements, select the folder where I have an audio. Now this is an MP3 file. So again, I'm just going to drag this left, and it's going to load up this MP3 file, and this is the thumbnail for an audio. Now we don't just need to import fonts, images, or objects. We can also import scenes, or what's called archives. So I'm going to keep my main folder selected here, and I'm going to come over here and to select archives. And I'm going to navigate to where I have some archives selected. So here you can see I have archive1ex, and it's a .via file. This is a Vizrt Artist archive. So I'm going to select on this one. And archives can contain pretty much anything. It will contain materials, fonts, images, or objects. This particular archive contains a material and a couple of images and also a font. So I can select these elements individually and import these. So for instance, this is a material. If I want to select my material folder on the left and my material tab, I can drag this blue into there. Now I already have a blue material in there, so it's asking me, do I want to overwrite it? I'm just going to hit yes. I have 4 images here that I want to import to that are contained within this archive. So I'm just going to select my images and my I tab and then slide it right into there. And I also have a font that I want to import. So I'm just going to leave my images folder highlighted and also my image tab. And I'm going to drag this font right into this window here. And since we already have this font, again, it asks, do I want to overwrite it? I'm just going to hit yes. And even though we didn't have our F tab highlighted, it automatically placed that font in there. And it also placed it in the folder what I had selected. So if I want to drag this font into another folder, I can just select it and drag it. And again, it knows that it's in there, so it asks, do you want to overwrite it? I'll just hit yes. And now that font is contained within our font folder. Now this other archive that we have here is actually a complete scene. So when I click on it and highlight it, it gives us a thumbnail of the scene down here. And this scene was created in an earlier version of Viz, so I'm going to import this into this newest version of Viz that I'm running on this computer. So I'm going to highlight this scene and just drag it into this folder here. And if any one particular element of this scene already exists anywhere within our database, it's going to ask us. So it asks us, do you want to replace it? We can choose yes, always, no, never, or cancel. For this example, I'm just going to say always, and now it's just always going to replace anything that may already be within our database. Here you can see that when we imported all these things, we get these little icons. Here's an A for audio, an I for image, an O for an object, and S for scene. So I'm going to double click on this scene. And like I said, this was created in an earlier version of Viz, so it's saying that it was saved in an old merge style. Do we want to convert it to this newer version? I'm just going to hit yes. Once we imported that scene, it actually carried with it all the images, objects, materials, and animation that we already had set in this scene. So once I bring it in, I can just hit play and it plays out throughout the scene.